Now, a deadline has passed for US federal government employees to submit an email summary of their work to Elon Musk's department or potentially lose their jobs. There's continued confusion over the validity of the directive, which has faced legal challenges. Key US departments, including the FBI and the Pentagon, have told staff not to comply with Mr. Musk's directive, while other agencies have advised employees to respond. In a post on X, Mr. Musk appeared to acknowledge his plan had run into difficulty, saying workers had failed to complete what he said was an utterly trivial request. He said they could be given a second chance to respond. In comments hours before the deadline, President Trump stood by Mr. Musk's order, calling it ingenious, adding that it would expose whether people were working. Now, staying in the US, Democrats and former American military officials have criticized the decision of the Trump administration to fire some of the military's top officers. One of them was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles Brown, the highest-ranking officer in the country. His firing has been widely linked to Mr. Trump's crusade against diversity initiatives. The US Defense Secretary, Peter Hegseth, also announced the sacking of 2 additional senior officers, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to lead the US Navy, and Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force General Jim Slife. All 3 top officers that have been removed were appointed by Mr. Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden. Well, for more on these stories, I'm joined now on the line from London by the Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Great to see you, Greg. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What do you make of that Elon Musk directive? Let's start from there, asking US federal government employees to submit an email summary of their work to his Department of Government Efficiency or potentially lose their jobs.
Well, I thought it was a great idea and a great move, and it's amazing how far, how low the bar has become in government. So, he's been shaking the tree. He's been really shaking things up in Washington. It's quite natural to bring, if you're bringing private sector mentality to government, you have to ask those kind of things. I mean, that's what people in the private sector do all the time. So I thought it was really simple. Controversial, of course it is, because the people that work in Washington in the unelected bureaucracy have just gotten it. It's just become really lazy, and it's about time that this kind of mentality was brought to Washington.
But I mean, there's a lot of confusion about that directive and whether this department actually has the right to direct employees. And just looking at Elon Musk's tweets about this, it just looks like an unserious bullying tactic by Mr. Musk and the administration. I mean, do you think they actually had any intention of having it followed or implemented?
Yes. He is just in an advisory role, and I think he might have stepped over the actual administrators, the secretaries that are in the cabinet that run these departments. And I think several secretaries, right away came out and said, okay, just ignore that. Not against it, but ignore it for now. But as far as the Trump administration being able to do that, these are all executive branch people. That's absolutely the president's responsibility to hire and fire people. If he wants to insist that people actually put in an honest day's work or insist that they do something constructive, that's quite natural. And so I think, President Trump, yes, he has that absolute responsibility. Elon Musk, maybe it's a new position. He's very proactive. He's very provocative. And I think he's going to make mistakes every once in a while. And he's even admitted that. Nobody bats 1,000, as he said.
Well, let's turn to what is happening in the US military. I wonder what your reaction is to the sacking by Donald Trump of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles Brown, after just 2 years of what should be a 4-year term. I mean, that's not the norm, is it?
No, not necessarily, but I think it's okay that presidents want to put their own footprint or imprint on the military. The U.S. military is civilian led. and it's absolutely the responsibility for the president to put in people he trusts. But there is a situation here where President Trump has said, we want to clear all of this DEI nonsense out of the government. That includes the military. And I think the focus that both President Trump and Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, they want to focus on the war fighting machine, making the military be able to deter war and win war if they have to fight them. That should be the number one thing, not diversity, equity, inclusion, not some fashionable trend. And I think that's what happened in the last administration, that many in the military took their eye off the ball. It doesn't make this person a bad General Brown, does not make him a bad person. He's an honorable man, but the military's been suffering from not only from bureaucratic groupthink and bureaucratic conformity to all these things going on in Washington. I think he needed to shake it up a little bit, and I know that there's going to be some volatility. That's quite natural and in many ways quite necessary.
Well, I mean, General Brown's supporters say he's the most qualified in the military right now, and they've fired him without cause, and that's rubbing a lot of people up the wrong way. I mean, it says to we've had lots and lots of people saying that, this is against sort of black people in the U.S. military, and that it's saying to them that they can be your sergeants and your majors, but no matter how qualified, you can't leave the military because you may be a
let's
DEI
be clear about
hire.
this. This doesn't mean that he wasn't a good pilot and a good officer. What it means is the primary focus of the military should be on warfighting capabilities. And what happened with General Brown and many others, it's not just him, is that they were sucked into this bureaucratic conformity is unhealthy. And in many respects, sometimes in the military, good people get fired. But you're right, it should be, and even the critics are right, it should be based on merit. But unfortunately, he got sucked into this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing. It has nothing to do with the color of his skin, nor should any promotions in the military be considered based on someone's skin color. And that's what Pete Hegseth wants to get back to, getting the best recruiting. And what has happened since Election Day? Recruiting in the Army, I can't speak for the Air Force or the Navy, but Army recruiting has gone from the absolute low during the Biden years, and especially in Biden's last year, the lowest since recruiting began to record back in the early 70s when the peacetime draft ended. So as soon as it became a professional Army, they measured the recruiting results. It hit an all-time low with Biden. Now it's at an all-time high, 350 soldiers registering every day. So this is working. And I think the dependency on quotas and racial, judging people by the color of their skin or their religion or their gender, big mistake when the primary focus should be on warfighting capabilities.
On that note, Greg, I want to thank you very much indeed. I know you've got to run in 3 minutes, and I do appreciate the time you've taken to talk to us because you're very busy. Greg,
great to see you.
Great to see you again. Greg Swenson is a Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK. He was talking to me on the line there from London.